Monday, the U.S. Congress legalized the historic post-9/11 expansion of government power to imprison even its own citizens indefinitely and without due process. Oh, there was an elaborate kabuki dance leading up to the vote, with the president threatening a veto and senators like Lindsey Graham declaring that America itself is a battlefield in the war on terror. But in the end, the issue really boiled down to whether the executive would have to give up the prerogatives that the Bush administration seized after 9/11, and they managed to find a way to finesse that. What's most astonishing about this is the context. It's not unprecedented for a nation to temporarily suspend its civil liberties protections during an emergency. American history is full of examples, and from some of our most beloved presidents. To become a truly beloved president, one almost has to preside over an emergency after all. But those protections become important again once the emergency has passed, and the nation usually seeks to reinstate them. It's not to excuse the suspension of basic rights even under those circumstances, but it is at least understandable. So why are we now legalizing these measures long after the emergency is over? Sure, we still live in a dangerous world, but we've been living in one at least since the advent of the bomb, and the last I heard we were picking off al-Qaeda members 3 at a time. The fact that this is happening with the war in Iraq wound down and Afghanistan scheduled to do so as well is what's most chilling about this. They are doing this 10 years after the emergency. The fog of war has long since lifted. Indefinite detention will now be law, not some emergency measure that history will judge to have been a mistake made in a crisis. It is a well-thought-out validation of certain views that have unfortunately become commonplace in American society, that terrorists, to be defined on the fly by the government, are not to be allowed the due process allowed to other human beings because our government just knows they are so dangerous that we cannot even take the chance that they won't be found guilty. That turns the rule of law on its head. We will, in all likelihood, see terrorists, however they're defined, disappeared into a military justice system indefinitely, just as those Gitmo prisoners, many of them innocent of any serious crime, have been left to molder in prison basically forever. As Mother Jones reporter Adam Serwer noted, the transfer restrictions effectively turned Gitmo into the Chateau d'If. That's the legendary prison which held the Count of Monte Cristo in Alexander Dumas' great novel about injustice. The horror of indefinite detention by capricious decision with no due process is one of the greater horrors of the imagination, and it's now been codified into American law. And those of you who trust that the Obama administration will not misuse this discretion should not be soothed. This law will remain on the books long after he is gone. How do you suppose the first Tea Party president will interpret it?